30 Odd Minutes is sponsored in part by Digital Dowsing. Who are you powered by?
For the next 30 minutes, we will explore the unexplained. From mysteries beyond our galaxy to ghostly phenomena in our own backyard. We will dive into our psychic abilities and explore everything from conspiracies to the just plain weird. Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. If the truth is out there, we will find it. But only by sheer accident.
Oh! Yeah. Good to have you guys here. Welcome to 30 Odd Minutes. You are aboard the mothership, and we've set her down right in the middle of a rock concert.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
We forgot
my lighter.
The beach ball, too.
Yeah.
We forgot everything. All right. Not a very good rock concert. I don't even see a band out there.
Not even a guy going test.
Yeah, we don't have the roadie.
There was somebody passing something around earlier.
Right, I did smell something. I thought that was the fumes from the engine, but who knows? The night is young, and that's how this goes. Good to see you guys.
Good to be seen.
Yeah,
yes.
It is indeed. So this past weekend, we were aboard the USS Salem in Quincy, Massachusetts. They say the ship is haunted. Speaking of, there's the symbol. Look at that.
Elizabeth Montgomery.
Right, and there she is. So this is a World War II era destroyer.
No, heavy cruiser.
Heavy cruiser, which
it is a battle wagon.
It is and it's amazing. I mean, you walked in there, it was like stepping back into like 1948.
Oh yeah.
And you can just imagine what life on this ship. So 1,600 was a full crew, right?
Yeah.
And we were walking all through the decks. We had a great event. It was really cool. Just a
little humid.
It was a little humid.
But we were in a tin can.
We know how ovens feel now.
800 feet of tin can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing though. It was a really cool place, and I'm glad we got to explore that.
Definitely.
And it was cool of them to let us fire the guns into the harbor.
Yes.
I didn't see that coming.
But
I guess you just got to ask sometimes.
That's right. Yeah. I just played dumb at the end result wherever the shell landed.
That's right. I hope that worked out for wherever it landed. All right. So who are we saying hello to this week?
We got a tongue twister. We're going to say hello to Contra Costa Media Television in Contra Costa County, California.
All right.
We did receive your shipment of mutilated cow. We appreciate it, and you will continue to get our transmission. Thank you so much.
What is it with cow mutilations? Why do we keep doing that every time?
They're delicious. That's all
it goes great in the barbecue.
They really do. There must be a more humane way, but that's how it goes. Okay, so tonight we're talking about rock and roll music and maybe making a pact with something a little bit dark to get where you need to go. There's a tradition of this. This is not a new thing.
Record producers?
Close. This is not a new thing in music, but it's something that hits home for our guest tonight. So what happens when a rock band starts cavorting with paranormal forces they don't understand? In 1981, an up-and-coming rock band called Entropy had a run-in with something they called the Gray Man. This entity promised power, fame, and everything an aspiring rock star could ever dream of, but it came at a price. Tonight's guest recounts how this creature, or whatever it was, brought his band right to the edge of fame, but then tore them apart. His new book is called Playing with the Devil, the true story of a rock band's terrifying encounters with the dark side. Please welcome, live from Colorado, Marcus F. Griffin.
Yeah.
How are you? Breaker 19. Are you hearing us?
I can kind of hear you. Yes.
There you are now. Okay, good. Well, good to have you with us, Marcus. Thank you. Thank you for joining us here aboard the mothership. So let's go back to the roaring 80s when we all had long hair. Matt still does. What happened? You're an up-and-coming guitar player. Take us to the very beginning of this story. Your car breaks down. What happens?
Car breaks down kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It was a 1971 Camaro. Had some very cheap tires on it. Had a nice car, but that's about all I could afford. Barely afford gas money. Right. So I'm out driving along with the bass player for the band I was playing in, and had the flat tire, inevitable. Checked the spare. Spare was, of course, also flat. So back in those days, we didn't have cell phones, at least nothing except for the big, gigantic suitcase-sized ones that none of us could afford, of course. So it was going to be a very long walk back to civilization. We started along this walk. About a mile or two in, I started really feeling just very odd, very strange. I just was wondering if I was being overcome with heat stroke or didn't know what was really going on. I started hearing like a faint buzzing sound in my ears. And I just kind of started noticing that my attention was being drawn to like the trees in the distance. Really started getting intense with that feeling, so I asked the bass player who was with me along the ride and the walk, he just sit down with me for a minute, let me catch my breath, get my bearings, and sat down, and the next thing I remember was really just being inexplicably drawn to a nearby tree. And I started feeling the sensation of my body my mind kind of leaving my body, and it went to the tree, and I started feeling like less and less like myself and more like I was just a part of that whole energy force, everything that was going on around me. And essentially that's the last thing I really remember about reality. When I called it a trance later on. At the time, I really didn't have a clue what was going on with me. When I kind of came out of this trance, I was no longer alongside of the road. I was sitting in the basement, the house I was living in at the time. The rest of my band was surrounding me. They all had very, very concerned looks on their faces. I was holding a piece of paper and a pencil tightly in my hand, and they explained to me that I had essentially written down this poem on this piece of paper and had been talking to them about this gray man that had been along with me the entire way on the way back to the house. And they were all extremely concerned. I looked down at the piece of paper. What I read there just made no sense to me. It was a poem. It rhymed, but it was horrible. I kind of explained to them that I was a much better poet than that, much better lyricist, and that whoever wrote it was just garbage. And then at that point, they basically explained to me that not only had I written down what was on the sheet of paper, but that I had been repeating it over and over again, pretty much like a chant, I believe the drummer said, for half an hour. And at that point, I looked down at my watch, and it was exactly 3:33 in the afternoon. This was the genesis. The poem couldn't have known at the time, but everything that followed hinged on that moment, on that walk back, on that trance, on the words I had written on that paper, and also with the importance of the time, the sequential numbers, 3:33.
So this is what's interesting to me. I had read in your book that this was your first paranormal experience. I know you're a paranormal guy. You've been on many investigation. I guess one of the things that happens, you just assume, people have been having these experiences since their childhood, but you're in your early 20s at this point. And this you say was your first. This is your first brush with something totally outside the realm of the everyday, right? When
I was a very young child, maybe 6 or 7, I did hear what I would consider now, with my experience and knowledge, to be a disembodied female voice in an otherwise empty house. But again, I was 6, 7 years old at the time. I had no clue. And again, jumping forward to when I was 20, yes, this was my very first experience with anything out of the ordinary like that at all. We were basically kids. I mean, barely out of high school. The drummer was a couple years younger than us. He had just learned how to drive. I mean, we were kids. We had no experience with anything like this. We didn't know what was going on. And at the time, it really didn't, we had no clue what was going on. Right. It was just, at that point, it was just a poem. It was words written on a piece of paper. I had a strange experience. I probably could have written off at that point to something medical, et cetera, et cetera.
There's an important point I want to make. This sounds like such a great backstory to a comeback for a band. But we could say right now there's no comeback planned at all, right? I mean, you're hardly even speaking with the other band members from all those years ago. This is not some kind of gimmick to get back on the road, correct?
Oh, God, no. Most of them won't even talk to me. The only member that will speak to me is the bass player, and he was actually quite reluctant. Right. I really felt at the time it was necessary to tell this story. I'd been writing for quite a number of years now, and I finally felt I had the tools to be able to relay that story to the world. I've been telling it in kind of a campfire type setting, late night, saying, hey guys, when I was younger, when I was in my 20s, we experienced this just incredibly insane stuff, and just kind of relaying that story. But now it was really cathartic. I've been carrying these memories for over 30 years, and this experience for over 30 years, and it was extremely profound. And I felt it was finally time to get that story out there and tell it to the rest of the world.
All right, let's go back a little bit first. I want to talk about Robert Johnson for a second. Blues legend. This is a guy, we've actually talked about him once before on our show. Here's a photo, the only known photo, I believe, of Robert Johnson. Delta blues player. Story goes that he grew up, he wanted to be a musician, he would beg to play local musicians' instruments. Then one day he disappears from town for
A
year and a half, something like that. And he comes back and he can play the guitar better than anybody's ever seen. And the story they come up with is he sold his soul to the devil at the crossroads in order to play guitar. Now, this is a legend that's been played out in movies and in folklore and so on. On the one hand, the legend, it undermines his ingenuity and talent, which isn't totally fair, right? I mean, it could just be the guy just played 24/7 and got really good, you know? I mean, there are people that are just amazing, at their instruments. And he's not alone. And also, too, I remember we were talking about before the show, Led Zeppelin. We have a photo of them, too. There's a story I remember hearing of how Robert Plant went to bed one night and the devil wrote the lyrics to Stairway to Heaven. It's a legend. It's a story. But again, there's this quintessential rock song that everyone knows, Stairway to Heaven. Yeah. It's so good, or even if you hate it, it doesn't matter. It's so popular. It must have been a deal with the devil as opposed to penned by someone. But think about the mindset of a young musician, right? All you want, and we were joking about this earlier, when you start putting a band together, and I think pretty much all of us have been in bands at some point, you always get those guys that are like, so when I'm on the cover of Rolling Stone, I'll wear this, and
they can't even get 3 chords down yet.
Yeah, they haven't even learned 3 chords, but they're still like, okay, what do you think of this move? Like when I'm on stage, and you're like, why don't you write some music first? So there's an allure there.
Yeah.
Like there's an allure. Like we're forming a band, and we could be crazy famous. But Marcus, you've got this entity, and you describe this poem as really more of a riddle, correct? What was the riddle about?
It was absolutely a riddle. The poem was connected to everything that followed. And once we figured out what the riddle was, the poem turned into a riddle, and we solved it, and that turned into a map that, strangely enough, led me and our guitar player, Chuck at the time, on a journey throughout my own home to the exact very center to the source of the entity. It allowed us to finally be able to contact this entity essentially at will. And it was really an amazing journey, and how we discovered it was, it's a very involved story.
Sure. It could probably take up a whole book.
The poem was given to me. We were searching desperately for a band for the name, or name for the band. We wanted something big, something huge. At one night, we were in my basement, the guitar player Chuck, myself, and our lyrical muse, Jeff. We're in the basement. We're just hanging out, kind of where our equipment was, on a couple of couches we had down there. We had a single candle lit, and we were searching for this name. And like I said, we wanted something big, so Chuck all of a sudden just kind of blurts out, well, let's call the band Universe. And I thought, well, okay, that's big, all right, but there was only one problem with that. Jeff and I both hated it. It was just,
right.
We thought it was a terrible name. We told Jeff that. He kind of got upset about that, and that moment, a word kind of popped into my head, and I just kind of sat there thinking about it. It was a word I'd only heard in science class, and that word was entropy. And from what little at the time, I remembered about, the meaning of the word entropy, which of course has myriad meanings. I found out later. Is the second law of thermodynamics, and that entropy, in a sense, was stronger than the universe because it would cause the universe to eventually go under a sort of heat death. So, in essence, entropy would eventually kill the universe. So I spoke aloud the word. I just said, entropy. And Chuck kind of shrugged, and he kind of looked over at me, and he said, what'd you say? Did you say entropy? I said, yeah, entropy. I said, you want a big name for the band? There you go. It's going to kill the universe eventually. He kind of sat back on the couch, and I thought, entropy. And I could tell there's something there. He kind of liked it. He and Jeff who was laying on the floor, he was a bigger guy, so he's kind of sprawled on the floor. He just kind of rolled over and gave me this friendly look, gave me a smile and a nod, and I can tell he liked it too. So I kind of laid back there too, and I said, yeah, feeling kind of euphoric about that. So I'm sitting there on the couch, and Chuck is next to me, and like I said, Jeff's on the floor. I just kind of gaze off in the corner of the room and just kind of lost in thought, and felt a little bit of the same sensation I had on the day back, when we had the flat tire, but not quite the same. Just like I said, more lost in thought. And I'm just sitting there enjoying the moment. All of a sudden, I feel this incredible pain in my right arm. And I'm like, well, what the hell is this? And I look down, and Chuck has the meat of my bicep just grabbed tightly in his hand, and his fingernails are digging into my arm. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And I look at him, and this man is back into the corner of the room where the couch meets the wall. His skin is pale white. Tears are running down his cheeks. His eyes are bright red. I've heard the term hair standing up on his head, 1,000 times. I've never seen it. I was looking at it. He was, his breath was irregular. It was, and heaving in and out. It sounded like laughter, and he had this madman's grin on his face. I'm like, just looking at this man, terrified. And through my own fear of what I was seeing, I noticed that he was looking at the center of the room. I turned my gaze and looked in the same direction. First, what I saw, and the way I described it in my book, is very muddled and vague, like the last remnants of a dream, which is exactly how it appeared. I saw something, and it all came into focus. Hovering, and I mean literally hovering, in the center of the basement was a hulking gray figure in the shape of a man.
Huh.
And I, of course, my entire body also jerked back involuntarily. I didn't know what I was seeing. I was completely terrified at that point. Jeff must have been aroused somehow by the commotion. He looks up, looks at us, starts looking around the room, lays eyes on this thing himself, jumps up, and what the F is that? Screams. He slams hard against the wall. It was so terrifying. This entity, this faceless gray man, turns its head in Jeff's direction as if to look at him. The thing has no eyes. I'll never forget, that the sensation I felt of that. And at that point, this entity rose even up higher in the air. What I can only describe as a ring of blue fire appeared on the floor at this entity's feet, and within a split second, it was sucked down into this. It was gone. The room all of a sudden was ice cold. It felt like there was no oxygen in the room. The single candle, which was the only source of illumination in the room, extinguished out. I panicked. I jumped up. I madly searched for the light switch behind me on the wall. I don't know how I found it, but I found it on the first try. Chuck was still in the corner, still gasping for breath. I grabbed him by the arm, and with Jeff leading the way, we exited the basement through the furnace room and up and out, into the kitchen and into the living room. And on the way out of the basement, I just happened to catch notice of the clock sitting on the mantle in the fireplace in the basement, and it was exactly 11:11.
Wow. All right, Marcus, hold tight right there. We need to take a quick break for the news. When we come back, I want to hear more about how this entity played a role in the rise to fame and what it wanted from you. So be thinking about that. We'll be back right after the news.
A man in Virginia named Roger Williams has posted a photograph on the Southwest Times News website asking for help in identifying the strange creature captured in this picture. The picture was taken in the mountains of southwestern Virginia by a trail cam left to photograph passing wildlife. Mr. Williams is wondering whether this animal is merely a mangy bear or possibly a Bigfoot. Many folks who have taken a look at this picture believe it could be a juvenile Sasquatch. Williams said that after scrutinizing the picture for some time, he could make out a hand on the animal's right arm with fingers grasping at the tree stump. He also said it has elongated feet similar to a man's appendages. In some ways, this fascinating picture is similar to the trail cam shot captured in 2007 by Bigfoot researcher Rick Jacobs in northwestern Pennsylvania. The animal in that picture was also believed to be a juvenile Sasquatch. Williams says that he's been hunting this area of Virginia annually and has never seen any signs of an animal like Bigfoot roaming the forest. If this isn't a bear with mange, let's hope it's not some guy in a ghillie suit. Remember what happened to the last one who did that. I'm Andrew Lake, and oddly enough, that's the news.
Thank you, Andrew. Sasquatch keeps making the news.
Yep, you gotta love these pictures. I believe in the big guy. I'm hoping I'm gonna catch him someday soon.
I have to say, though, the picture you found of the mangy bear,
yeah,
it looks a lot like some of the stuff in the photos.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
the Jacobs picture. A lot of people came to the conclusion that's exactly what that was.
looks an awful lot like the other photo. But
Yeah.
the paranormal keeps making the news
Yeah.
week after week. Isn't it funny? The more you look into this, the more you find.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
It's such a popular subject, and especially when we're talking about legends behind the stories and stuff like that. It's easy to get supernatural with it, just like.
Well, look at what my old mentor told me. For every step you take towards the unknown, it takes two towards you.
It's a little frightening.
It is.
Well, didn't Nietzsche say, gaze long enough into the abyss gazes back?
Right.
Same idea.
Yeah, same idea. All right, we are talking about the new book, Playing with the Devil, the true story of rock band's terrifying encounters with the dark side, with Marcus Griffin. Marcus, okay, so you have this incredible run-in. This poem is a puzzle. And now, what does this thing want from you and your band? It seems to want something. It seems you have to play a role in its existence and vice versa.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it is a very, very large story. I mean, if this was 120-odd minutes, we might be able to scratch just the surface of it. Essentially, from that on, after we witnessed the apparition in the basement, we were continually haunted. Things were calm for a while. A couple months actually went by where we experienced absolutely nothing else that we considered even remotely strange or paranormal. Then we started constantly seeing numbers on the clock, sequential numbers, 333, 444, 1010. It didn't really matter. They were just, they seemed to grab our attention. We would wake up in the middle of the night, haunted by dreams, visions, things like that. I had a very terrifying experience with a girlfriend of mine in shadows and other very strange things in the guest room of the house. At this point, I started hearing every night I was being awakened at exactly 3:33 in the morning by the sound of a horn blasting in my ear. And to me, it seemed like to be a very real sound, not something from the dream. I remember the first time it awoke me, literally jumping up and out of my bed in a single motion, and I could swear I could still hear the sound of that horn reverberating inside my bedroom. At any rate, long story short, I decided I couldn't sleep anywhere where it wouldn't bother me. I slept on the couch, nothing. It woke me up again. Bathtub, everywhere in the house, it just would not stop, and I was getting very agitated. I was losing sleep. I was missing work. I was canceling band practices, haunted by this thing. Eventually, we decided that we were all experiencing strange things. As a group, we decided together that it was time, whatever, we didn't have a clue what this was, but we decided that it was time to stop running away from it, and instead we started running towards it. In other words, we came to embrace this entity. We not only embraced it, we wrapped ourselves in the very fabric of it. We called the power of this entity and our own energy combined, as we called it, force. This really didn't have anything to do with Star Wars, but the line from the poem, which was first line from the poem, which was "Feel the force of life surrounds us, every fiber, every strand." We accepted this force, this power, into our lives without question. We eventually learned to speak in a very rudimentary form the language of this entity, which was numerical. We learned how to speak this language, how to contact it. The further and further we got entwined with this thing, the more it would display its pretty, unfathomable powers. It would do what it wanted. We received several commands. First command was that we as an Entropy were to go to California in the heart of the music industry. The second command was that under no circumstances were we to talk about this. We were to not show others our darker side, literally, for then we must stay here, as it was put in the words of the great man. Of course, eventually a couple of us, being young and very ignorant, and we disobeyed that command. Everything started to unravel for us. Like I said, it's a very huge story. There's just so much that happened to us, and I've had to reach back, across 30 years of time to get this story out of my head and pull it together, and it's really, really an amazing journey. Now, the devil, I don't believe so. Honestly, in my opinion, several of the band members do, and honestly have spent their entire lives thinking so. My opinion, with all the experience I've had since then and in my studies and learning, I believe that this was definitely a very powerful, not only very powerful, otherworldly entity. It also, contained or had extreme intelligence, and not only intelligence, but wisdom. I believe that it was drawn to our intense energy force of, these 5 young men that were so eager, to play, to make this music, to make this dream happen. And I believe that it was doing its absolute best to guide us to that ultimate end, but it definitely tore us apart.
Right.
I fully believe now that we were much too young. Had this entity contacted us when we were maybe in our early 30s, we would have been able to handle it. We would have understood it better. We would have actually been able to go all the way with this and make the bond, the absolute blood pact, as my bass player Trice put it, between ourselves, not just with the entity, but between ourselves. And, we, like I said, I believe we were just too immature. Wanted things too badly. We jumped too fast, too far, and didn't follow the rules, and kind of ultimately paid the price for that.
So earlier today, we asked some of our fans on Twitter and Facebook, what would be a good name for a paranormal band? You talked about how you came up with Entropy. I just wanted to throw it out there to the Twitterverse and see what they came up with. There were some good answers. Take a look. Here's our tweet of the week. So there's the question. What would be a good name for a paranormal band? This, Marcus, was some of the answers we got. Take a look. The Orbs. Not bad. Thank you, Aileen, I think. That's how you pronounce that?
Yep.
And then we got K2. Get it? The meter.
Yep.
Right. Okay, not bad. This is a bad idea. That was actually my favorite. That was my favorite name. This is a bad idea because I completely, though not a good name, completely agree with you, Angela.
It's good, though.
Terrible idea. And then finally, White Noise. Not bad, because that's probably what it would sound like. And of course, there was our original band, the EVPs.
Yes.
That was our original band when we did it. But we weren't mingling with any dark forces other than a complete lack of talent, among most of us. Marcus, so you talk about the power and thing that this had with your band. Do you think behind every great band there is some kind of force that's otherworldly? I mean, is it beyond? It begs the question: why are some people so gifted musically, or other ways as well? But why are some people so gifted, so far beyond? Why are some bands, destined for success? Do you think this is a common thing with bands and they just don't talk about it?
No, I think a lot of that depends on natural talent, charisma. I mean, obviously, some of the worst singers in the world are actually some of the biggest stars,
Sure.
in my opinion, of course. But yeah, I believe it's honestly a combined effort. It's the gathering together of that like-mindedness, that energy, force that you really create when like-minded people come together and they want something and they pour their heart and soul and their talent into it. I believe that in a way, maybe something paranormal is created, whether, in word paranormal, of course, you take that any number of ways, but yeah, it creates something. And I believe that every once in a while that force becomes so large, it goes out there and something beyond the veil, beyond this world, kind of latches onto it, gets attracted to it, and there you go.
Right. Well, the name of the book again is called...
Warning. The mothership's refrigeration units are almost out of beer. The beer store closes in 1 minute.
I hate when that happens. It totally happens. We get all the way up to the end. All right, again, the name of the book is Playing with the Devil, the true story of a rock band's terrifying encounters with the dark side, by Marcus Griffin. We'll, of course, have links to it from our website. You can check it out at 30oddminutes.com. You can email us. We love to get your emails, info@30oddminutes.com. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and all that fun stuff. We love to hear from you guys. Marcus, thank you so much for sharing your story. We know there's a ton more. We encourage people to go check out the book. Check it out on Amazon or wherever books are sold. And guys, until next time, stay odd.